Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Thursday, the 6th day of July, 2023, Thursday of the 13th week of the year, the 13th week in Ordinary Time. Coming to you from Newark Airport today, because I'm making my way back to Raleigh after being away doing some masses and other things in New Jersey. So hopefully flights will be on time and I'll be able to get back to Raleigh in a decent hour, so we'll see what happens. But today, as we move into this Thursday, 13th week in Ordinary Time, we have the sack of Abraham again continuing all this next couple of days and the past couple of days and things like that. And now we come to the great encounter where God asks Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and the thing about it is that it's one of the most controversial and not easily explainable and troublesome of all of scripture passages that we kind of come across. And you know, the question is always again, why does God ask this, and what kind of God asks this kind of thing? And again, the likening of basically God saying, you know, to Jesus, go ahead and, you know, die on the cross because that's kind of what I like and that's what's going to make things better for the world is not really good, because the reality is that Isaac is not sacrificed. Abraham does not sacrifice Isaac, but God takes Abraham to the 11th hour to kind of prove something that God needs to know about Abraham's faithfulness or his trust and everything that God has been doing. It is also interesting that in all of the other previous encounters that God has had with Abraham, God questions Abraham. I mean, Abraham questions God again and again and again, as if it was whether or not God is doing what God should be doing and whether or not this should be taking place the way that it is. And yet God does not, Abraham does not question God in this horrible, awful request that God makes of him. And again, it is always a sense in which trying to understand who and what God is and trying to fathom the reasoning and the rationality that God works out of is impossible for us as human beings. And again, it becomes worse when we try to turn God into ourselves. We try to make God someone like us, because that is never ever the way in which one approaches God, in which one tries to understand who God is. And so this encounter and this situation that basically allows again for Abraham to solidify the covenant with God and God with Abraham. And again, the repeating that because nothing will be held back from Abraham and his relationship with God, then again the descendants will be numerous as stars in the sky and sand of the seashore. And even in this last proclamation that God makes, that all nations will find blessing because of what Abraham has done. So again, this far reach, you know, of God's desire to bring people into relationship with Him, to bring people into relationship with God. It goes beyond Judaism, it goes beyond the Hebrews, it goes beyond Israel. It goes to all people and all nations. But that Israel leads the way, and the Hebrew people lead the way, and the understanding of the relationship that God has with humanity finds its origin and source in Judaism and the Hebrew people. And so again, trying to understand what is going on and why this is happening and why God is asking this question, never easily explainable, and it trips up so many people, especially those who are trying to come into the community of faith when they hear about this, because it just seems horrible and gruesome and terrible. And yet it is the way in which, you know, again, God works to solidify this covenant. And it is not about bloodshed. It is not about death. It is not about destroying anything that is grounded in love. It is about realizing that God will ask things, and we have got to decide whether or not, you know, we will say yes to them, and we will follow them through, trusting always, again, that God knows what God is doing. In Matthew's Gospel today, again, I think I've forgotten what Matthew's Gospel was about. It is oh, yes, it is, again, against the raising, the healing of a man who was paralyzed. And again, the way in which the offense that people take to this, because either because Jesus uses the words, your sins are forgiven, and the man is healed, and they think that that's blasphemy, only God can forgive sins, etc., etc., and how dare Jesus say this kind of thing? And then basically Jesus' retort, well, what is easier to say than for you? Is it easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk? And so I'll say, get up and walk, and the man does. And again, there is this resistance to wanting to see the wonder and glory of God in the midst of these people. And Jesus, again, trying to persevere and show that there is more wonder and glory than they can ever imagine. And so Jesus uses the simplest of terms: get up and walk, nothing more, nothing less. And that's basically many times what God says to us. Stop looking for great miracles. Stop working for things that are spectacular or supernatural, whatever it is. Just get up and walk and see where it is to which we are led. Again, trusting always that God knows what God is doing for us. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. Again, may the Lord give you his peace.